Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab. Now, let's begin. The Montana sky stretched endlessly above the Norton family home, painted in shades of amber and gold as autumn settled over Billings. Everett Norton stood in his woodshop behind the house, carefully planning a piece of cedar that would become a jewelry box for his daughter Katie's 10th birthday. The rhythmic scrape of metal against what brought him a peace he'd come to cherish in recent years. He was a man who'd rebuilt his life from the ground up. At 38, Everett carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd survived his own darkness and emerged stronger. His construction business had grown from a one-man operation to a respected firm with 12 employees. But his greatest achievement walked through the workshop door every evening at 5:30, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. "Dad, I made varsity debate team." Katie burst through the door, her auburn hair catching the late afternoon light. She had her mother's hair, but Everett's sharp green eyes that missed nothing. Everett set down his plane and pulled his daughter into a hug. "That's my girl. Told you that summer reading program would pay off." Katie beamed, then her expression shifted. "Mom says Grandpa Wade called again. About the ranch." The workshop suddenly felt colder. Everett kept his voice level. "What did she say?" "She said we'd talk about it at dinner." Katie's fingers twisted the strap of her backpack. "I don't want to go there again, Dad. This wasn't the first time. Last summer, Wade Gillespie had insisted Katie spend 2 weeks at his ranch outside of Miles City. She'd returned quiet, withdrawn, jumping at sudden noises. When Everett pressed her, she'd only said the ranch made her feel wrong. Krista had dismissed it as homesickness, but Everett knew his daughter. Katie Norton didn't scare easily. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do," Everett said firmly. "That's a promise." Dinner that evening was tense. Krista had made pot roast, Wade's favorite, though he wasn't even there. She moved around the kitchen with nervous energy, her blonde hair pulled back so tightly it made her look severe. "Your father called 3 times today," Krista said, setting plates down harder than necessary. "He's insistent about Katie spending next summer at the ranch. He says it's important for her to know her heritage, to learn responsibility." Everett cut his meat with deliberate precision. "Katie's 10. She learns plenty of responsibility here. She needs to know that side of the family." Krista's voice had an edge to it, a brittleness Everett had learned to recognize. "The Gillespies have owned that land for 4 generations. It's her birthright." "I don't want to go," Katie said quietly. Krista's fork clattered against her plate. "Katie, your grandfather's getting older. He won't be around forever. You should appreciate the time he wants to spend with you." "Why?" Katie's voice was small but steady. "Why does he only want me there in the summer? Why not visit here? Why does it have to be at the ranch?" It was a good question. Everett had asked it himself. Wade Gillespie never came to Billings, always demanded they make the 3-hour drive to Miles City. He had a foreman who could run the ranch, yet he insisted on Katie's presence specifically during the summer months when the days were longest and the ranch hands were busy with cattle. "Because that's how the Gillespies do things," Krista snapped. "God, you sound just like your father with all these questions." Everett met his wife's eyes across the table. Maybe that's not a bad thing. That night, after Katie was asleep, Everett found Krista on the back porch with a glass of wine. The September air carried a hint of the coming winter. "We need to talk about your father," Everett said. Krista didn't turn around. "There's nothing to talk about. Katie goes to the ranch next summer. It's decided." "No, it's not." Everett kept his voice calm. "Katie's terrified of that place, Krista. She won't say why, but I've never seen her scared like this. What happened last summer? She was homesick. That's all. That's not all. And you know it." Everett moved to stand beside her. "What happened to you at that ranch, Krista?" She flinched, the wine sloshing in her glass. "Nothing happened. You're being paranoid." "Am I? Because I remember you telling me you couldn't wait to leave home at 18. You moved to Billings the day after graduation and barely spoke to your father for years. Then Katie was born, and suddenly you're desperate for his approval again." Krista's hand trembled. "He's changed. People like Wade Gillespie don't change." Everett had met his father-in-law only a handful of times, but each encounter left him unsettled. Wade was a large man, 6'3" with hands like baseball mitts and eyes that lingered too long on young waitresses. He spoke to women like they were livestock to be assessed and acquired. He made a pointed comment at Katie's 8th birthday party about how she was developing into quite a little lady. "You don't know him like I do," Krista whispered. "That's what I'm afraid of." Krista turned on him then, her face flushed. "Just stop, Everett. Stop making everything so complicated." Katie goes to the ranch. That's final. She went inside, leaving Everett alone with the Montana night. He stood there for a long time, thinking about the way Katie's hands had trembled when she mentioned her grandfather, thinking about Krista's desperate need to please a man who'd clearly damaged her, thinking about the locked drawer in Wade Gillespie's study that Krista had warned him never to open during their one visit to the ranch house. Everett Norton wasn't a man who ignored his instincts. They'd save his life more than once during his wilder years, before he'd gotten sober and straightened out. Those instincts were screaming now. He pulled out his phone and called an old friend. "Mel, it's Everett. Yeah, I know it's late. Listen, I need a favor. You still do private investigation work on the side." Mel Blanchard had served 2 tours in Afghanistan with Everett's cousin. He'd settled in Miles City after his discharge, running a small security consulting business that mostly involved insurance fraud cases. He also had access to databases and connections that Everett lacked. "I need you to look into someone. Wade Gillespie owns the Circle G Ranch outside Miles City. I need to know everything: property records, business dealings, any complaints or police reports. Can you do it quietly?" Mel's gravelly voice carried concern. "This about Krista's old man? You think he's into something? I think my daughter's scared of him, and I need to know why. Give me a week. I'll see what I can dig up." Everett ended the call and went inside to check on Katie. She was asleep, curled up with the stuffed wolf he'd won for her at the state fair 3 years ago. He sat on the edge of her bed, studying her peaceful face. Whatever darkness lurked at the Circle G Ranch, it wouldn't touch his daughter again. He makes sure of that. In the hallway, Krista's voice drifted from their bedroom. She was on the phone, speaking in hushed tones. Everett moved closer. "Yes, Daddy. I know. I'm working on it. Everett's being difficult, but yes. Next summer. I promise." Everett's blood ran cold. The way she'd said, "I promise," carried the weight of old fear, old obligations. He thought about his wife at 18, fleeing Miles City like it was on fire. Thought about her gradual transformation after Katie's birth, how she'd slowly reconnected with Wade despite years of self-imposed exile. Something had broken in Krista long ago, and Wade Gillespie had done the breaking. Now he wanted Katie, over Everett's dead body. He spent the next week watching, cataloging. He noticed how Krista became agitated whenever Wade called, how she'd snap at Katie over minor infractions, then apologize excessively, how she'd started drinking more, always after conversations with her father. She was coming apart at the seams, torn between protecting her daughter and obeying her abuser. Mel called on a Friday evening. "Everett, we need to meet. Not over the phone. You free tomorrow?" They met at a truck stop halfway between Billings and Miles City. Mel looked grim as he slid a manila folder across the table. "This ain't good, brother. Wade Gillespie's clean on paper. No arrests, no complaints. But I talked to some people who know people. 3 different families in Miles City quietly moved away over the years. All had daughters who'd spend time at the Circle G Ranch during summer programs Wade used to run for troubled youth. One father tried to press charges in 1998, but it went nowhere. Small town politics. Judge was Wade's hunting buddy. Everett's hands clenched. What happened to the girls? 2 won't talk about it. The third, Lynette Duffy, married name. She'll talk if you promise her anonymity. She's in Denver now, works as a trauma counselor. I got her number. What else? Wade's got a cabin on the north edge of his property. His ranch hands aren't allowed near it. He keeps it locked up tight, except during summer months. There's also this." Mel pushed a photograph across the table. "Satellite image from last July. See that window on the 2nd floor? That's the cabin. Now, look at this one from September. New bars on all the windows." Everett stared at the photos, rage building in his chest. "He locks them in?" "Yeah. And Everett? Wade's wife left him in 1985. Divorce papers cited irreconcilable differences, but she got nothing in the settlement. Just walked away. Remarried in Oregon under a different name. She died in 2003. Krista would have been 7 when her mother left. Exactly. She grew up alone with that man. Everett felt sick. He called Lynette Duffy that afternoon from his truck, parked in an empty lot where no one could hear. "Mr. Norton, I'll tell you what I told the detective back then." Lynette's voice was calm, clinical. "Wade Gillespie is a predator. He's careful, patient. He grooms parents first, makes them feel special that their daughter has been chosen for this opportunity. Then he isolates the child. By the time anything happens, the parents are so invested in denying it that they turn on their own kids. I tried to tell my parents. They called me a liar, said I was trying to ruin a good man's reputation. I left home at 17 and never went back." What did he do to you? Do you really need the details, Mr. Norton? Or do you just need to know that your instincts are right? I need to protect my daughter. Then don't let her anywhere near that ranch. And watch your wife. If she's insisting Katie go, it's because Wade's got hooks in her too deep to pull free. Some of us never escape him, not really. After the call, Everett sat in his truck for an hour, processing. Then he drove home and packed a bag. Krista was at her book club, something she'd recently started attending every Friday night, always coming home smelling like wine and anxiety. Katie was at a sleepover with her best friend Shannon Larkin. Everett had 3 hours. He drove to Miles City. The Circle G Ranch sprawled across 800 acres of prairie and scrubland. Everett parked a mile away and hiked in as dusk fell, using skills he'd learned during his construction work to move quietly across the terrain. He'd brought a good camera with a telephoto lens, borrowed from a photographer he'd hired for a project brochure. The cabin Mel had mentioned sat isolated on a rise, screened by cottonwoods. Everett circled it carefully, photographing everything. The bars on the windows were new, heavy-duty. The door had 3 deadbolts, all keyed from the outside. There were no inside latches. Through a gap in the curtains, Everett saw the interior. One room had been converted into a bedroom, with a pink bedspread and stuffed animals arranged carefully on shelves. But the bed had restraint straps built into the frame, barely visible. The other room held a desk with a computer and filing cabinets. The walls were bare except for a calendar marking off days and summer months. Everett photographed it all, his hands steady despite the rage coursing through him. He was about to leave when he heard an ATV approaching. He dropped behind a woodpile as Wade Gillespie pulled up to the cabin. The man had aged since Everett last saw him, but he still moved with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences. Wade unlocked the cabin and went inside, emerging minutes later with a cardboard box. He drove away without seeing Everett. Everett waited 30 minutes, then moved to the cabin door. It was still unlocked. Wade had been in a hurry. Inside, Everett found the filing cabinets open. One drawer was empty, presumably the contents now in the box Wade had taken. But the others held folders labeled with names and dates going back to 1982. Everett's hands shook as he photographed page after page. School photos of young girls. Notes in Wade's handwriting detailing their visits. Polaroids that made Everett want to burn the whole place down. He found Krista's folder, 1985 to 1992. She'd been 7 when it started. 15 when she finally escaped to boarding school, paid for by Wade as a gift. The last folder bore Katie's name. It was empty except for a single school photo from last year and notes. Next summer. 2 weeks minimum. Old enough now. Everett took everything. Every photograph, every folder, every piece of evidence. He loaded it all into his backpack and took a final set of photos showing the empty filing cabinets. Then he locked the cabin behind him and hiked back to his truck. He called Mel from the road. I need you to make copies of everything I'm about to give you. Multiple sets. Store them in different locations. If anything happens to me, these go to the FBI, the state police, and every news station in Montana. Jesus, Everett. What did you find? Proof. 30 years of it. And Mel, I need one more thing. I need to know when Wade Gillespie is planning to make a move. He won't wait until summer now that I'm pushing back. He's going to try something soon. How do you know? Because he's a predator, and predators don't give up their prey without a fight. Everett was right. 3 days later, Wade showed up at the Norton house unannounced. Everett was at a job site when Krista called, her voice panicked. He's here. He's demanding to see Katie. Everett, he's saying she needs to come with him this weekend for a trial visit. He says it's non-negotiable. Where's Katie? In her room. She locked the door when she heard his voice. Good. Tell Wade I'll be home in 20 minutes. Don't let him in the house, Krista. Not for any reason. He's my father. He's a predator. Everett said it clearly, firmly. And I have proof. We'll talk when I get there. He made it home in 15 minutes, taking corners faster than he should have. Wade's truck sat in the driveway, a gleaming black F-350 with custom plates. Circle G. Wade stood on the porch, towering over Krista. He turned as Everett approached, his face splitting into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Everett, good to see you, son. I was just telling Krista that Katie and I need some quality time together. I thought this weekend. No. Everett kept his voice level, professional. Katie doesn't want to visit, and we're respecting her wishes. Wade's smile hardened. Now, that's not really your decision, is it? Krista's her mother, and Krista agrees with me. Don't you, honey? Krista stood frozen between them, her face pale. Daddy, maybe we should wait until summer like originally planned. I said this weekend. Wade's voice dropped, taking on an edge that made Krista flinch. The girl needs discipline, needs to learn respect for her elders. You're too soft on her, both of you. We're done here. Everett stepped between Wade and the door. You need to leave. Or what? Wade moved closer, using his size to intimidate. You gonna make me? You know what I think, Everett? I think you're putting ideas in my granddaughter's head, turning her against family. That's parental alienation, son. I could take you to court. Everett pulled out his phone and showed Wade a photograph. The interior of the cabin, the restraints on the bed, clearly visible. I think a judge would be very interested in your cabin, and the filing cabinets, and the 30 years of documented abuse. The color drained from Wade's face. For a moment, something ugly flickered in his eyes. Rage, calculation, fear. Then he smiled again, but it was different now. Dangerous. You broke into my property. That's trespassing, possibly burglary. Any evidence you gathered is inadmissible. Maybe, but it's plenty admissible in the court of public opinion. I wonder what your ranch hand would think. Your business partners. Your church congregation. Everett's voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. Get off my property, Wade. Don't come back. Don't call. Don't contact Katie or Krista. If you do, everything I found goes public. Wade looked at Krista. You're really going to let him threaten me? Your own father? Krista's hands twisted together. Daddy, maybe it's better if. Fine. Wade's voice was cold. But this isn't over, Everett. Not by a long shot. You think you can keep her for me? She's my blood. She's a Gillespie. And what's mine I keep. He left, his truck kicking up gravel as he peeled out of the driveway. Krista turned on Everett, tears streaming down her face. What have you done? You had no right to go through his things. No right to. He's been abusing children for 30 years, Krista, including you. She slapped him. The crack echoed across the porch. Don't you dare say that. He's my father. He loves me. That's not love. What he did to you, what he wanted to do to Katie, that's not love. Krista backed away, shaking her head. You don't understand. You don't know what it's like. He's all I have. You have me. You have Katie. For how long? Until you decide we're too much trouble? Until you leave like everyone else? Her voice broke. At least Daddy always comes back. He always wants me. Everett saw it then. The depth of damage, the twisted logic of an abused child who'd never healed. Wade hadn't just hurt Krista. He'd programmed her, shaped her into someone who couldn't conceive of a world where she deserved better. I'm not leaving, Everett said quietly. But I'm not letting him near Katie either. You need to choose Krista, your daughter's safety or your father's approval. You can't have both. She ran inside, slamming the door. Everett found Katie in her room, headphones on, pretending to do homework. She pulled them off when he entered. Is he gone? Yeah, sweetheart. He's gone. He's going to come back, isn't he? Grandpa Wade always comes back. The resignation in her voice broke his heart. Not this time. But Katie was right. That night, After Everett had checked the locks 3 times and set up his old security cameras around the house, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You think you're smart. You think you've won. But I know what you did. I know where you work, where Katie goes to school, where Krista shops. I know everything. And sooner or later, you'll slip up. You'll leave a window open or forget to lock a door. And when you do, I'll be there. She's mine, Everett. She was always mine. You're just delaying the inevitable." Everett screenshot the message and forwarded it to Mel, then called the police. The officer who took the report was sympathetic but clear, without a direct threat. There wasn't much they could do. A restraining order might help, but enforcement would be difficult given Wade's connections in Miles City. "Best thing you can do is document everything," Officer Pete Gallagher advised. "Keep your security cameras running. Don't let the girl out of your sight. And if he shows up, call us immediately." Everett thanked him and hung up, knowing it wasn't enough. Wade Gillespie wasn't the type to be deterred by police reports or cameras. He was a patient predator who'd perfected his craft over decades. He wouldn't stop until he had what he wanted. So Everett started preparing for war. He installed better locks, reinforced the window frames, and set up a security system that would make a bank jealous. He varied Katie's school drop-off and pick-up times, never following the same route twice. He hired a private security firm to patrol his job sites after an accidental fire destroyed equipment at one of his projects. And he started planning. Because Everett knew something about predators that Wade didn't understand. They always returned to what they couldn't have. It was pathology, not choice. Wade would come for Katie, probably soon. He was used to taking what he wanted without consequences. This time will be different. Everett studied the texts, which kept coming despite being blocked. Wade was escalating, his messages growing more detailed, more threatening. He described Katie's daily routine with disturbing accuracy. Her debate team practice schedule. Her favorite flavor of ice cream at the shop on 24th Street. The plaid backpack she carried. "He's watching us," Krista admitted one night, her voice hollow. She'd started sleeping in the guest room, unable to face Everett's disappointment. "He always watches. Even when I was little, I could never escape his eyes." "Then we'll give him something to watch," Everett said. He called Mel again. "I need help setting up a controlled scenario. Wade's going to try something. When he does, I want to be ready. I want evidence so airtight that his connections won't matter. Can you help? What are you planning?" "To give him exactly what he wants on my terms." Mel was quiet for a moment. "This is dangerous, Everett. If it goes wrong, it won't. I've been sober 12 years because I learned to plan every move 3 steps ahead. This is no different." They spent the next week preparing. Mel installed additional cameras with night vision and audio recording. They set up redundant storage for all footage, with copies automatically uploading to a secure cloud server. Everett briefed Katie carefully, explaining that something might happen, but that she was safe, that Daddy had a plan. "Is Grandpa Wade bad?" she asked him one evening. Everett knelt down to her level. "Yes, sweetheart. He's very bad, but he won't hurt you. I promise." "What about Mom?" "Your mom is struggling, but she loves you. That part's real." Katie nodded slowly. "When I was at the ranch last summer, Grandpa Wade showed me a room. He said it was being prepared just for me. He said I'd love spending summers there. That would be our special place. He said Mom spent summers there too when she was my age." Everett's jaw clenched. "Did he touch you?" "He tried, but I kicked him and ran. He laughed and said I had spirit. Said it would make breaking me in more fun." She said it matter-of-factly, like she was describing a math problem, but her hands trembled. "I didn't tell Mom because I thought she wouldn't believe me. She never believes bad things about Grandpa. I believe you, and he'll never touch you again." 3 nights later, Wade made his move. Everett was ready. He'd sent Krista to stay with her friend Margaret Dunlap, claiming the house needed fumigation. Krista had gone reluctantly, her divided loyalties tearing her apart. Katie was supposedly sleeping at Shannon Larkin's house, but she was actually in the safe room Everett had constructed in the basement, playing games with noise-canceling headphones while Mel kept watch. In Katie's actual bedroom, Everett waited in the darkness. He'd left the window unlocked deliberately. The curtains were drawn, but not completely. A night light cast a soft glow, illuminating the shape under the covers, pillows arranged to look like a sleeping child. Everett sat in the closet, door cracked, camera in hand. Waiting. He didn't have to wait long. At 2:47 a.m., he heard it. The subtle scrape of the window sliding open. Slow, practiced, nearly silent. Wade had done this before, many times. He knew exactly how to move, how to avoid creaks and squeaks. The window rose fully. A large silhouette appeared, backlit by moonlight. Wade Gillespie hauled himself through with surprising agility for a man his size. He stood there for a moment, letting his eyes adjust, staring at the shape in the bed. Everett's cameras caught everything in high definition. Wade's predatory smile, the rope he pulled from his jacket, the way he approached the bed with eager anticipation. "Katie," Wade whispered, reaching for the covers. "Grandpa's here. Time to come home." He pulled back the blanket and froze, staring at the pillows. Looking for someone? Everett stood up, turning on the lights. Wade spun around, his hand moving toward his pocket. "You son of a—" "I wouldn't." Everett's voice was calm. In his hand was a tire iron from his construction truck. "Cameras are recording everything. You're already done, Wade. The only question is whether you leave here conscious or not." Wade's eyes darted around, calculating. "You set me up. This won't hold up in court. Breaking and entering. Attempted kidnapping. Rope in your pocket that matches the type found in your cabin. Multiple cameras showing premeditation and intent." Everett stepped closer. Plus 30 years of documented evidence of child abuse. Plus testimonies from 3 women you victimized. Plus the text messages you sent threatening my family. Plus the files I found in your cabin detailing your plans for Katie. Wade's face contorted with rage. "She's my granddaughter. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent." Officer Pete Gallagher stepped into the room, along with 2 other officers and a detective. They'd been waiting in the hallway, listening through Everett's security system. "Wade Gillespie, you're under arrest." Wade lunged toward Everett, but the officers were faster. They had him on the ground in seconds, cuffing his hands behind his back. He fought and cursed, but it was over. Detective Darrell Joseph pulled Everett aside while the others hauled Wade out. "We'll need your full statement. The cameras, the files, everything. It's all ready. Mel Blanchard has organized copies for you. You took a hell of a risk, Mr. Norton." "No risk at all. I knew exactly what he'd do. Men like Wade can't help themselves. They always go back for what they think they own." The detective nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. My daughter's about Katie's age. If someone, I probably would have used more than a tire iron." The thought crossed my mind. The detective left, and Everett sat down on Katie's bed, the adrenaline finally catching up with him. His hand shook. It had worked. His daughter was safe. Mel emerged from the basement with Katie. She ran to Everett, wrapping her arms around him. "Did you get him, Dad?" "Yes, sweetheart. I got him. Is he going to jail?" "For a very long time." The next morning, Krista came home. Everett showed her the footage, the evidence, all of it. She watched in silence, tears streaming down her face. "He's my father," she whispered when it was done. "He's a monster," Everett corrected gently. "What he did to you wasn't your fault. You were a child. But now you have a choice. You can keep defending him, or you can get help. Real help. For yourself and for Katie." Krista looked at their daughter, who stood in the doorway watching them with cautious eyes. "I don't know how to be different. That's okay. We'll figure out together. But it starts with choosing Katie over Wade. Can you do that?" It took a long moment, but finally Krista nodded. "I'll try." The trial took place 8 months later. The prosecution had built an overwhelming case. Beyond Everett's evidence, 2 more women had come forward after Wade's arrest. One had been keeping a detailed diary for 20 years, waiting for someone to believe her. The physical evidence from the cabin was damning. The text messages showed clear premeditation. Wade's defense attorney tried to argue entrapment, but the mountain of historical evidence destroyed that claim. This wasn't a one-time mistake or a setup. It was a decades-long pattern. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge was unsparing. "Mr. Gillespie, you've stolen innocence from children for over 30 years. You've destroyed families and traumatized an entire community. The law gives me discretion in sentencing, and I intend to use it. You will spend the remainder of your natural life in prison, with no possibility of parole. I can only hope that gives your victims some measure of peace. Wade showed no remorse. Even being led away in chains, he stared at Everett with pure hatred. But Everett didn't flinch. He'd already won. Krista started therapy that same week. It was slow, painful work. She had decades of trauma to unpack, layers of manipulation to peel away. But she showed up every session. She worked through her guilt, her misplaced loyalty, her conditioned responses. Some days she backslid, defending Wade or minimizing what happened. But gradually, with Dr. Sylvia McCormick's help, she began to separate the father she'd wanted from the monster he'd actually been. Katie started therapy too, processing not just last summer, but the generational trauma that had nearly claimed her. She'd been saved by her own instincts and her father's vigilance. Dr. McCormick said she'd probably saved future victims too. Wade would have continued until someone stopped him. The Circle G ranch was seized by the state and auctioned off. The proceeds went to a victims fund. The cabin was demolished. Everett went out to watch them tear it down, needing the closure. Mel Blanchard was there too. You did good, brother. I just protected my kid. You did more than that. You broke a cycle that's been going on longer than either of us has been alive. That takes guts. Or just stubbornness. Mel laughed. Same thing, really. On Katie's 11th birthday, Everett finished the jewelry box he'd been making. He'd added an inscription on the lid, "For my brave girl. Love, Dad." She opened it on her birthday morning, her eyes going wide. "It's beautiful. You know what goes in it?" Everett asked. "Jewelry. Eventually. But first." He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a card with a phone number. "That's the number for a national hotline for kids who need help. I want you to memorize it. And I want you to promise me something. If you ever feel unsafe with anyone, you'll call that number. Or call me. Or call Mel. Or tell a teacher. Promise me you'll never stay silent about something that scares you." Katie nodded seriously. "I promise." "Good. Because what happened with your grandfather, it only worked because people stayed silent. Your mom stayed silent. Other victims stayed silent. But you were brave enough to tell me the truth, even when you were scared. That's the bravest thing anyone can do. Mom's getting better, isn't she?" "Yes, she is. Slowly but surely." And she was. Krista would never be perfect. The damage ran too deep. But she was trying. She'd cut all contact with anyone who defended Wade, including her Aunt Frances Wilcox, who'd called Everett a liar. She'd started attending a support group for adult survivors of childhood abuse. She'd written Katie a letter apologizing for not protecting her, for almost betraying her to Wade. Katie had read the letter and cried. Then she'd hugged her mother and said, "It's okay, Mom. We're safe now." 1 year after Wade's sentencing, Everett received a call from Detective Joseph. "Thought you want to know, Wade died in prison. Heart attack, apparently. Though between you and me, word is some of the other inmates found out what he was in for. Child predators don't do well inside." Everett felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, just nothing. "Thanks for letting me know. How's your family doing?" "Better. Healing. Katie's thriving. She won the state debate championship last month. Krista's in school, training to be a social worker. She wants to help other survivors." "That's good. Real good. You ever think about what might have happened if you hadn't listened to your gut?" "Every day. That's why I'll never ignore it again." That evening, Everett told his family about Wade's death over dinner. Krista cried, not from grief, but from relief. "It's really over? It's really over." Katie was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'm glad he's dead. Does that make me a bad person?" "No, sweetheart. It makes you human. He hurt you. He hurt your mom. He hurt a lot of people. You're allowed to be glad he can't hurt anyone else. I wish I'd been braver last summer. Wish I'd told you right away instead of waiting. You were plenty brave. You survived. You spoke up when it mattered. That's all anyone can ask." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Krista said, "I've been thinking about starting a support group for mothers who failed to protect their children from family members. I can't be the only one who got trapped in that cycle." "I think that's a great idea," Everett said. Dr. McCormick says I might never forgive myself completely, but maybe I can help other mothers do better than I did. You're doing better now. That's what matters. Later, after Katie was asleep, Krista found Everett in his workshop. He was building a new bookshelf for Katie's growing library. "Thank you," Krista said quietly, "for not giving up on me, for protecting Katie when I couldn't, for everything. You're my wife. She's my daughter. There's nothing to thank me for. There is, though. You could have divorced me, taken Katie, and left. God knows you had cause, but you stayed. You helped me fight my way out of the fog." Everett set down his saw and pulled her close. "We're family. That means we fight for each other, not against each other. Your father tried to teach you that family means blind loyalty and silent compliance. But real family means protecting the vulnerable and standing up to abusers, even when it's hard. I'm trying to learn that. I know, and you're doing great." 6 months later, Krista's support group had grown to 12 members. They met weekly in the community center, sharing stories and strategies. Several had cut ties with abusive family members. Others were working through court cases or custody battles. All of them were learning to put their children's safety above their parents' demands. Everett sometimes attended as a spouse supporter, along with other partners. He'd share what he'd learned, to trust your instincts, to believe your child even when it's easier not to understand that protecting an abuser makes you complicit in the abuse. "My wife tells me I'm too harsh," one man said during a session. "Says I'm judging her for not seeing what her uncle was doing. But damn it, our daughter told her something was wrong, and she didn't listen. Being angry is natural," Everett replied. "But remember, your wife was probably groomed too. These predators are good at what they do. They create systems where victims protect them. Breaking free of that takes tremendous courage. Be patient, but also be clear about your boundaries. Your daughter's safety isn't negotiable." The man nodded, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. After the meeting, a woman approached Everett. "I'm Ada Barnett. My daughter is about Katie's age. My father, he's a lot like Wade Gillespie. I've been trying to work up the courage to cut him off completely, but my mother says I'm being cruel. That family is family, no matter what." "Your mother is wrong," Everett said firmly. "Family is who protects you, who makes you safe. Anyone who demands access to your child while making the child feel unsafe isn't family. They're a threat. What if I'm overreacting? What if my daughter is just sensitive and I'm destroying family relationships over nothing? What does your gut tell you?" Ada's eyes welled up. "That my father is dangerous. That I need to keep my daughter away from him. But saying it out loud feels like admitting I failed her already." "You haven't failed her. You're here, aren't you? You're learning, fighting, trying to break the cycle. That's not failure. That's victory." Ada started crying, and Krista moved to comfort her while Everett stepped back. This was the work now, helping others escape the traps that had nearly destroyed his own family. Katie was 13 when she gave her first speech about childhood safety at a school assembly. She spoke clearly and confidently about the importance of listening to your instincts, about how adults aren't always right, about how family members can be dangerous. "My grandfather tried to hurt me," she told the auditorium full of middle schoolers. "He was charming to everyone else, but he scared me. And when I told my dad, he believed me. He protected me. That's what adults are supposed to do. Believe kids when they say they're scared." The principal had worried the speech would be too intense, but the response was overwhelming. 7 students came forward with their own stories of abuse or inappropriate behavior by family members. 2 teachers quietly disclosed their own childhood experiences. The school implemented new safety protocols and invited Detective Joseph to teach a seminar on recognizing grooming behavior. Everett watched from the back of the auditorium, proud beyond measure. His daughter had taken her trauma and transformed it into advocacy. She was saving other kids just by being brave enough to speak. That night, Katie asked him, "Do you think Grandpa Wade ever felt bad about what he did?" "I don't think so, sweetheart. People like him don't think like we do. They feel entitled to take what they want. I used to think there was something wrong with me, that I'd done something to make him. There was nothing wrong with you. There was everything wrong with him. I know that now. but it took a long time to believe it. That's okay. Healing isn't linear. On Katie's 16th birthday, Everett took her to the mountains for a weekend camping trip, just the two of them. They hiked to a remote lake and set up camp under the stars. "You remember when I promised you'd never have to go back to the ranch?" Everett asked as they sat by the fire. "Yeah. I need you to know something. I would have died before I let him take you. There was no scenario where I was going to fail you." Katie leaned against his shoulder. "I know, Dad. I always knew. You're going to college soon. You'll be out in the world on your own. And I need you to remember, you have good instincts. Trust them. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Even if it's someone I'm supposed to trust. Especially then, trust is earned, not given. And anyone who demands blind trust is usually hiding something." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. Everett thought about the man he'd been before Katie was born, directionless, struggling, lost. She'd saved him as much as he'd saved her, given him purpose, made him better. "Dad," Katie said quietly, "thank you for fighting for me. Always, sweetheart. Always." Years later, after Katie had graduated college with honors in criminal justice, after she'd joined the FBI's Crimes Against Children unit, after she'd helped take down 3 more predators like Wade Gillespie, she came home for Christmas. She found Everett in his workshop, now graying at the temples but still strong, still steady. "I got the DNA results back on that case in Oregon," she said. "The one with the ranch." "Yeah. Same MO as Wade. Isolated children, summer camps, locked cabin. We found files going back 40 years. The suspect is 72, been doing this his whole life." Everett set down his tools. "You get him. We got him. And Dad, we found connections. Heath and Wade were friends. They shared victims sometimes. Traded them between ranches." The room went cold. "Jesus. The good news is we've identified 3 other ranches in the network. We're taking them all down simultaneously next week. It's going to be huge, probably the largest child abuse ring in Montana history. But Dad, I couldn't have done this without what you taught me. You showed me that one person standing up, one person refusing to be silent, can break these cycles. You started this." Everett pulled his daughter into a hug. "No, sweetheart, you did this. I just got you started. Still, I wanted you to know what you did that night, waiting for Wade. It saved more than just me. The evidence you gathered, it's helped us identify patterns, connect cases. You literally changed the trajectory of dozens of children's lives. I just protected my kid." Katie smiled. "That's what you always say. But it was more than that. You chose to fight when it would have been easier to look away. You believed me when even Mom couldn't. You taught me that protecting children is more important than protecting family secrets." Everett thought about that night 6 years ago, sitting in Katie's closet with a tire iron and a camera, waiting for a monster. He'd been terrified, not of Wade, but of failing, of missing something, of not being enough. But he had been enough, and Katie was living proof. "I'm proud of you," he said, "more proud than I can ever express." "Right back at you, Dad." That evening, the whole family gathered. Everett, Katie, Krista, and Krista's support group members who'd become like extended family. They ate and laughed and shared stories. The room was full of survivors and protectors, people who'd chosen safety over silence, truth over tradition. As Everett looked around the table, he felt a deep sense of peace. Wade Gillespie had tried to destroy their family, to claim Katie as another victim in his decades-long campaign of abuse. But he'd failed. He'd underestimated a father's love and a daughter's courage. He'd underestimated the power of one person saying enough. And in the end, justice had prevailed. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Enough to sleep at night. Enough to look his daughter in the eye. Enough to know he'd done everything in his power to keep her safe. The next morning, Katie found him outside, watching the sunrise. "You okay, Dad?" "Yeah, just thinking about all the ways this could have gone wrong. All the times I almost missed the signs. But you didn't. That's what matters. Maybe. Or maybe I just got lucky." Katie shook her head. "No, you were prepared. You trusted your instincts. You acted when action was needed. That's not luck, that's skill." Everett smiled. When did you get so wise? I had a pretty good teacher. They stood together in the early morning light, father and daughter, survivors and fighters. Behind them, the house was warm with family and fellowship. Ahead, the future stretched bright and open. Wade Gillespie had tried to steal Katie's childhood, to damage her the way he'd damaged so many others. But he'd failed. She'd grown into a strong, brave woman who dedicated her life to protecting other children. His legacy of pain had been transformed into a legacy of protection. And Everett? He'd kept his promise. Katie had never gone back to that ranch, never suffered at Wade's hands, never had to carry the scars Krista bore. Sometimes late at night, Everett still thought about that moment. Wade climbing through the window, rope in hand, anticipation on his face. The moment when the predator realized he'd walked into a trap. The look of rage and fear when he understood he'd finally face consequences. Those memories didn't haunt Everett. They comforted him, because they proved that monsters could be stopped, that predators could be defeated. That one person, acting with courage and preparation, could change everything. "I love you, Dad," Katie said. "I love you too, sweetheart, more than anything in this world." The sun broke over the horizon, painting the Montana sky in shades of gold. A new day, a safe day, a day Wade Gillespie couldn't touch. And that, Everett thought, was victory enough. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Stranger in Black. The October rain fell like accusations against the cemetery's black umbrellas. Nathan Hunter stood rigid as stone, watching his son's casket descend into the earth. 22 years. That's all Mark had gotten. 22 years of life, ambition, and unrealized dreams ended on a rain-slicked highway 3 nights ago. Single-car accident, the police had said. Lost control on the curve. Nathan's jaw tightened. Mark had driven that route 100 times. He'd been a careful driver. Nathan had made sure of that. 15 years in military intelligence had taught Nathan to read between lines, to spot inconsistencies. Something felt wrong, like a chord played off-key. Beside him, his wife Rebecca Morrison Hunter trembled, her nurse's hands, usually so steady, clutching his arm like a lifeline. Her red-rimmed eyes stared at nothing. They'd been married 24 years, and he'd never seen her this broken. The mourners dispersed like shadows. Colleagues from Nathan's security consulting firm offered hollow condolences. Mark's journalism professor, Arthur Spencer, a silver-haired man with kind eyes, gripped Nathan's shoulder. Mark was brilliant. He would have changed the world. Would have. Past tense. The words felt like shrapnel. Then Nathan noticed her, a figure in black standing apart from the others, face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat and veil. Something about her posture, the way she held herself, seemed familiar yet strange. Young. Mark's age, perhaps. As people filtered toward their cars, the woman approached. She moved with purpose, her heels silent on the wet grass. "Mr. Hunter?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, strained with emotion. "I'm sorry for your loss." He was special. Nathan studied her. "Did you know my son?" "Yes." Her gloved hands trembled as she produced a manila envelope from her coat. "He wanted you to have this if anything happened to him." Those were his exact words. "If anything happens." The hairs on Nathan's neck stood up. "What do you mean, if anything?" But she was already walking away, her pace quickening. "Wait," Nathan called out, but she disappeared between the headstones like smoke. Rebecca appeared at his side, eyeing the envelope with suspicion. "What is that?" Nathan turned it over. His name was written in Mark's handwriting. His throat constricted. He tore it open. Inside, a single key attached to a tag with an address. 1847 Warehouse District, Unit 7B, and a note in Mark's tight scrawl. "Dad, if you're reading this, I was right about everything. They're more dangerous than I thought. The key opens the truth. Trust no one. Destroy them. M." Nathan, Rebecca's voice cracked. What does it say? He showed her the note. Her face drained of color. No, she whispered. No, Nathan. Whatever this is, leave it alone. Our son is dead. I can't lose you too. Becca, promise me. She grabbed his lapels, her voice rising. Promise me you won't go there. It's probably nothing. Some story he was chasing, some conspiracy theory. Let go. Please. Nathan looked at his wife's desperate face, then at the key in his palm. Cold. Heavy. Real. I promise I'll be careful, he said, which wasn't the promise she wanted. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Nathan lay in Mark's childhood bedroom, surrounded by trophies and photographs. Mark at 8, gap-toothed and grinning. Mark at 16, tall and serious. Mark at graduation, eyes bright with purpose. They're more dangerous than I thought. At 3 a.m., Nathan dressed in dark clothes and drove across town to the warehouse district. The area was industrial, mostly abandoned at night. He found Unit 7B in a renovated building, its windows dark. The key fit perfectly. Nathan pushed open the door, hand instinctively moving to where his service weapon would have been years ago. He found a light switch. The room was a journalist's war room. Court boards covered every wall, plastered with photographs, documents, newspaper clippings, and red string connecting them all. At the center, a photograph of a handsome man in his 50s with steel-gray hair and cold blue eyes. Someone had written beneath it, Dominic Tracy, the devil himself. Nathan's blood ran cold as he stepped closer. Chapter 2. The Devil's Empire. Nathan spent 4 hours in that room, his military training kicking in as he methodically cataloged everything Mark had gathered. Dominic Tracy, city councilman, real estate developer, philanthropist, on the surface, a pillar of the community. But Mark had peeled back the veneer to reveal something rotten underneath. The court boards told a story of systematic corruption spanning 2 decades. Properties purchased for pennies, then rezoned at massive profit. Small business owners forced out by mysterious fires and health violations. Witnesses who disappeared. Competitors who had fatal accidents. Nathan found Mark's laptop, password protected. He tried Mark's birthday. Nothing. Then he tried his own birthday, combined with Rebecca's. It opened. The files were meticulously organized. Mark had documented everything. Offshore accounts, shell corporations, payments to city officials. But the recent files made Nathan's stomach turn. 6 months ago, Mark had started investigating a pattern of deaths. A housing activist named Annie Valentine had fallen from her balcony after organizing tenant protests. A county inspector named Herbert Merritt had died in a suspicious house fire 2 weeks before he was set to testify about building code violations. A reporter from a rival paper, Martin Stevenson, had been found dead of an apparent overdose, except Martin had been 3 years sober. Mark's notes grew increasingly urgent. Tracy has someone on the inside. Police? DA's office? Someone's making these deaths disappear. Need to identify the enforcer. Then Nathan found the video files. The first showed a parking garage at night. Grainy footage of a man, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with a cop's bearing, meeting with someone in shadows. Mark had enhanced and frozen a frame, catching the enforcer's face. Below it, Lloyd Powers, former detective, Tracy's fixer. Nathan's hands clenched. He recognized the name. Powers had been forced out of the department 5 years ago for excessive force, right before Tracy hired him as head of security. The next video made Nathan's heart stop. It was dated 4 days before Mark died, taken from across the street. It showed Mark meeting with a young man outside a coffee shop. Even in the distance, Nathan recognized him. Rod Tracy, Dominic's son. Mark and Rod had been childhood friends, inseparable through high school. The video had audio. Mark must have been wearing a wire. You need to testify. Mark's voice, urgent. You're the only one who can confirm what your father did to the Valentine woman. Rod's response was barely audible. I can't. You don't understand what he's capable of. Then help me bring him down. For Annie. For all of them. Rod's face twisted with something between fear and anger. You think you're some hero? You're a dead man, Mark. Just like everyone else who crossed him. Back off while you still can. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Rod had walked away. Nathan's vision blurred. He forced himself to keep watching, keep reading. Mark's final entry was dated the morning of his death. Rod told his father, "I know he did. Powers has been following me for 2 days. I'm not paranoid. I have evidence. I've copied everything to the cloud and left instructions with someone I trust. If they come for me, Dad will know what to do. He'll finish this. I'm not afraid. Some things are worth dying for." The room spun. Nathan gripped the desk, his breathing ragged. They'd killed his son, murdered him, and staged it as an accident. He pulled out his phone and started photographing everything. Every document, every connection, every piece of evidence Mark had died gathering. Then he found the safe, hidden behind a loose panel. Inside, 3 burner phones, $10,000 in cash, and a thumb drive labeled nuclear option. Nathan plugged it into the laptop. The drive contained audio recordings, Dominic Tracy himself, talking to Lloyd Powers about handling problems and making people disappear. It was damning, but not quite enough for a conviction. Smart lawyers could argue context, claim it was taken out of context. Mark knew that. That's why he'd kept investigating, kept pushing for Rod's testimony, the smoking gun that would make the recordings irrefutable. And they'd killed him for it. Nathan's phone buzzed. "Rebecca, please come home. I'm scared." He looked at the core boards one last time, at Dominic Tracy's photograph. Those cold blue eyes seemed to mock him. Nathan Hunter had spent 15 years in military intelligence, much of it hunting terrorists and war criminals. He knew how to be patient, how to plan, how to destroy an enemy from the inside out. Dominic Tracy had made this personal. That was a fatal mistake. Chapter 3. The Soldier's Clarity. Nathan returned home as dawn broke, finding Rebecca at the kitchen table, still in yesterday's black dress. "You went," she said flatly. "I had to." And Nathan sat across from her, taking her hands. Mark was murdered. It was made to look like an accident, but he was murdered because he uncovered something that powerful people wanted buried. Rebecca's face crumpled. Oh God, no. I have proof. Evidence. But it's not enough. Not yet. The man responsible has connections everywhere. Police, judges, politicians. Then take it to the FBI, the state police. Someone. With what? Circumstantial evidence gathered by a dead journalist? They'd bury it, Becca. Mark knew that. That's why he left this for me. Rebecca pulled her hands away. What are you planning? Justice. That's not an answer, Nathan. He met her eyes. These people killed our son. They've killed others. They'll kill again unless someone stops them. Not you. You're not a soldier anymore. You're a consultant. A father. My husband. I'm all those things, Nathan said quietly. But I was also trained for this. Mark left me his investigation because he knew I could finish it. Or die trying. Just like he did. The words hung between them like a blade. Nathan stood, pacing to the window. Outside, the neighborhood was waking up, normal people living normal lives, unaware that predators walked among them. 15 years ago, he said, I was in Kandahar. My unit was tracking a warlord who was trafficking children. We had intel, we had evidence, but every time we got close, he slipped away. Someone was tipping him off. One of our translators. Rebecca had heard this story before, but she listened. I could have gone through channels, filed reports, let it play out through official means. But while we waited, more kids disappeared. So I didn't wait. I handled it myself. That was war. This is war too, Nathan said. Just a different kind. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Hunter, a male voice, smooth and cultured. My name is Dominic Tracy. I believe you found something that belongs to me. Nathan's pulse quickened, but his voice remained steady. I don't know what you're talking about. Please, let's not insult each other's intelligence. Your son was a talented young man. Misguided, but talented. He took something from my office, files, recordings. I like them back. Mark is dead. A tragedy. Truly. These young people, they drive so recklessly. The casual malice in his tone made Nathan's vision red. If you're implying, I'm implying nothing. I'm stating facts. Your son died in a car accident. The police investigated. Case closed. But I understand grief can make people irrational. That's why I'm calling as a courtesy, to help you avoid making similar mistakes. Is that a threat? It's friendly advice. Rebecca is a wonderful woman. Works at St. Mary's Hospital, doesn't she? Third shift, Tuesday through Saturday. It would be terrible if anything happened to her on those dark drives home. Nathan's hand tightened on the phone until his knuckles went white. You don't want to do this, Mr. Tracy. Actually, I don't want to do anything. I want you to return what Mark stole. Forget this unfortunate business and grieve your son in peace. Everyone wins. And if I refuse, then you'll learn what Mark learned. Some fights can't be won. Some enemies can't be beaten. I've been doing this for 20 years, Mr. Hunter. I'm still here. Everyone who opposed me isn't. That's not arrogance. It's mathematics. The line went dead. Rebecca had gone pale. He knows where I work. Nathan, this is insane. We need police protection. From police who might be on his payroll. Nathan shook his head. No, we do this my way. Your way gets you killed. Maybe. Or maybe I'm better at this than he thinks. Nathan pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in 3 years. It rang 4 times before a gruff voice answered. This better be good. Austin, it's Nathan. I need your help. A pause. Hunter? Shit, man. I heard about Mark. I'm sorry. Austin Fields had served with Nathan in military intelligence before starting his own PI agency. He was one of 3 people Nathan trusted absolutely. It wasn't an accident, Nathan said. I need everything you can find on Dominic Tracy and Lloyd Powers. Deep background. Financial records. Phone logs. Everything. Jesus. You're sure about this? Mark left me proof. These men killed him, Austin. They threatened Rebecca. I'm going to end them, but I need intelligence first. Another pause. Then I'll start digging. But Nathan, if you're going to war, don't do it alone. You taught me that. Nathan looked at his wife, who watched him with terror and something else, resignation. She knew him, knew that once he set his mind to something, God himself couldn't stop him. I won't, Nathan promised. But Austin, keep this quiet. Tracy has people everywhere. Understood. I'll call when I have something. Nathan hung up and turned to Rebecca. Pack a bag. You're staying with your sister in Cleveland until this is over. I won't leave you. Yes, you will. Because if you're here, you're leverage against me. I can't do what needs to be done if I'm worried about protecting you. Tears streamed down her face. I already lost my son. I can't lose you too. Nathan pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. You won't. I promise. But I need you safe so I can be smart, not reckless. She pulled back, searching his face. Who are you right now? My husband or the soldier? Both, Nathan said. And that's what's going to make the difference. Chapter 4. The Intelligence. Austin Fields worked fast. Within 48 hours, he'd compiled a dossier that would make the NSA jealous. They met at Nathan's office, a nondescript building in the business district. Austin arrived after dark, carrying a laptop and a thick manila folder. You look like hell, Austin observed, setting down his gear. Nathan hadn't slept properly in days. What did you find? Austin opened the laptop, pulling up financial records. Dominic Tracy is a ghost wrapped in legitimacy. On paper, he's worth about $40 million. Real estate, investments, consulting fees. But when you dig deeper, he pulled up offshore accounts. The real number is closer to $300 million. Money laundered through shell corporations in the Caymans, Luxembourg, Singapore. From what? Everything illegal you can imagine. Protection rackets. Bribery. Contract fixing. He doesn't get his hands dirty personally. That's where Lloyd Powers comes in. Austin pulled up a photograph of Powers, a brick of a man with a shaved head and dead eyes. Ex-cop like you suspected. But here's the interesting part. Powers was investigated twice for excessive force. Both times, witnesses recanted. Both times, the investigators were transferred to dead-end assignments within 6 months. Tracy's reach, Nathan muttered. It gets worse. Powers has been present at or near the scene of every suspicious death connected to Tracy's business interests. But he's smart, never leaves evidence, always has alibis. He's a professional. Nathan studied Powers' face. What's his weakness? Arrogance. He thinks he's untouchable. Also, Austin pulled up bank records. He's greedy. Tracy pays him well, but Powers has been skimming. Small amounts, hard to trace, but it's there. He's planning an exit strategy. Can we use that? Maybe. But there's another angle. Austin pulled up a photograph of Rod Tracy, Dominic's son. 24, handsome in the way wealthy young men are, with his father's cold eyes. Rod was Mark's friend, Nathan said. Was being the operative word. Rod graduated from Yale 2 years ago, came back to work for Daddy's company. But according to my sources, the relationship is complicated. Rod resents his father's methods, but lacks the spine to oppose him. He drinks too much, parties harder. He's weak. Mark tried to flip him, and failed. But maybe you'll have better luck. Rod's guilt is eating him alive. I found therapy bills and arrest for drunk and disorderly that Daddy made disappear. The kid's cracking. Nathan absorbed this. In military intelligence, you identified pressure points and exploited them. Rod was a pressure point. What about Arthur Spencer? Nathan asked. Mark's journalism professor. Austin pulled up another file. Clean. Devoted to his students. Been teaching investigative journalism for 20 years. He knew Mark was working on something big, but not the details. I think you can trust him. And the woman at the funeral? The one who gave me the envelope. Austin's expression shifted. That took some digging. Her name is Leah Boyer. She was Mark's girlfriend, secret girlfriend. They met in a journalism seminar last year. She knew everything, Nathan. She was his confidant, his research partner. She's the one who helped him set up that safe house. Nathan's chest tightened. Mark had a girlfriend, had loved someone, and Nathan had never known. Where is she now? Hiding. She's terrified. When Mark died, she went underground. Quit her job, moved out of her apartment. She thinks Tracy's people might come for her next. We need to find her. She might know things Mark didn't document. Already on it. I have a line on where she might be. But Nathan, Austin's voice turned serious. What exactly are you planning here? Because if you're thinking about killing these people, that's not something I can help with. Nathan met his friend's eyes. I'm not going to kill anyone. Then what? I'm going to destroy them. Everything they've built, everyone who protects them. I'm going to dismantle their empire piece by piece and make sure they spend the rest of their lives in prison. Mark wanted justice, not revenge. I'm going to give him both. Austin studied him for a long moment. You've got a plan. I'm working on one, but I need more intel first. Powers' schedule, his routines, Rod's vulnerabilities, Tracy's business partners, everything. That'll take time. I have time. Tracy thinks I'm scared, that I'll run or make a reckless move. He doesn't know I've been doing this since before his son was born. Austin smiled grimly. The hunter, not the hunted. Exactly. Chapter 5, The Enforcer's Visit. Lloyd Powers came for Nathan on a Tuesday evening. Nathan was in his garage, working on his truck, when he sensed the presence. Years of training had honed his instincts. He didn't turn around. Mr. Hunter, Powers' voice was like gravel. We should talk. Nathan set down his wrench slowly, wiping his hands on a rag before turning. Powers stood in the garage doorway, blocking the exit. He was bigger in person, built like a linebacker, wearing an expensive suit that couldn't quite hide the shoulder holster. Uninvited guests aren't welcome, Nathan said evenly. This won't take long. Mr. Tracy is concerned. He reached out to you in good faith, but you haven't responded. I don't negotiate with murderers. Powers smiled without humor. Careful with accusations you can't prove. Your son's death was investigated by competent authorities and deemed accidental. Authorities you paid off. Now you're just being paranoid. Powers stepped into the garage, examining tools on Nathan's workbench. Your service record is impressive. Military intelligence, multiple commendations. But that was a long time ago. You're older now. Slower. You got a wife to think about. Nathan's jaw tightened. If you touch Rebecca. See, that's the problem with threats. They only work if you can follow through. Powers picked up a hammer, testing its weight. Mr. Tracy doesn't want trouble. He just wants his property back. The files your son stole. The recordings. All of it. And if I don't have them, then we find out what happened to them. Maybe your son share them with others. That college professor, maybe, or a girlfriend we don't know about. Powers set down the hammer. We need to ask them. Persuasively. Nathan's muscles coiled, but he forced himself to stay calm. Powers was baiting him, trying to provoke a reaction that would justify violence. You know what I learned in Kandahar? Nathan asked conversationally. That the biggest, toughest guys always made the same mistake. They thought size and violence solved everything. But intelligence beats strength every time. Powers' smile faded. Is that a threat? It's an observation. You've killed, what, 6 people for Tracy? Maybe more? You think you're invisible, but you're not. You leave traces. Digital footprints. Witnesses. Mistakes. It's not a question of if you get caught. It's when. You think you're going to catch me? Powers laughed. You in what army? I don't need an army. I just need to be smarter than you. And I am. Something dangerous flashed in Powers' eyes. He stepped closer, and Nathan recognized the body language. A predator measuring prey. Let me make something clear, Powers said softly. I've broken men like you. Made them beg. Made them watch while I hurt the people they loved. Your son? He cried at the end. Called for his mommy. Nathan's vision went red, but his voice remained deadly calm. You just made a mistake. What's that? You confirmed you killed him. I've been recording this whole conversation. Powers' hand moved toward his gun, but Nathan was faster. He grabbed the hammer from the workbench and swung it in one fluid motion, connecting with Powers' wrist. The crack of bone was audible. Powers' gun clattered to the concrete floor. Powers roared, swinging with his good hand. Nathan ducked, using the bigger man's momentum against him, driving him into the workbench. Tools scattered. You're dead. Powers snarled, trying to get his hands around Nathan's throat. But Nathan wasn't the man he'd been at 45. He'd stayed sharp, stayed trained. He drove his elbow into Powers' solar plexus, following with a knee to the groin. Powers doubled over, and Nathan swept his legs, sending him crashing to the floor. Nathan scooped up the fallen gun, pointing it at Powers' head. You're going to listen carefully, Nathan said, breathing hard. I don't want Tracy's files. I want everything. His empire, his money, his freedom. And I'm going to take it all. You can help me, or you can go down with him. Powers spat blood. You're insane. Maybe, but I'm also the guy holding the gun. Nathan pulled out his phone with his free hand, showing the recording app. This entire conversation is backed up to the cloud. You confessed to murder. If anything happens to me, it goes straight to the FBI. Powers' face went white. Tracy will kill me if I turn on him. Tracy's going to prison. The question is whether you join him or cut a deal. Nathan lowered the gun slightly. I'm giving you 72 hours to think about it. After that, the recording goes public and you're on your own. He tossed Powers' gun into a bucket of oil. Get out and tell your boss I'm coming for him. Powers climbed to his feet, cradling his broken wrist. Hatred blazed in his eyes, but also something else, fear. After Powers left, Nathan locked the garage and went inside. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. He called Austin. It's starting. Powers came for me. I got him on tape confessing to Mark's murder. Jesus. You okay? Better than him. But we need to move faster now. Tracy knows I'm not backing down. I found Leah Boyer. She's in a motel across town, registered under a fake name. She'll meet with you tomorrow. Nathan closed his eyes. Good, because we're going to need her testimony. After hanging up, he listened to the recording of Powers' confession. The man's voice, cold and cruel. Your son? He cried at the end. Nathan saved the file, backed it up 3 different ways. Then he opened Mark's investigation files and began planning the endgame. Chapter 6, The Broken Heir. The coffee shop was nearly empty when Nathan arrived. Leah Boyer sat in the back corner, a baseball cap pulled low over dark hair, eyes that darted to every new customer. She recognized Nathan immediately. They had the same haunted look. Mr. Hunter, she said as he sat down. Her voice trembled. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about Mark. You loved him, Nathan said. It wasn't a question. Tears welled in her eyes. We were going to get engaged. After he finished the story. After Tracy was in prison. We had plans. Nathan's throat tightened. Why didn't he tell us about you? He wanted to, but he was afraid that if Tracy found out, they'd use me as leverage. That's why we kept it secret. That's why I gave you the envelope at the funeral instead of just coming to your house. Tell me what happened. The night he died, Leah wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. He called me around 9 p.m., said he was meeting Rod Tracy one last time, trying to get him to testify. He sounded scared but determined. I told him not to go alone, but he said Rod would only talk to him. That was the last time I heard his voice. Rod set him up. Yes. I don't know if Rod knew what his father would do, but he told them about the meeting. 2 hours later, Mark was dead. Nathan pulled out his phone, showing her the recording of Powers' confession. She listened, her face going pale, then crumpling with grief. That monster, she whispered. That fucking monster. I'm going to make him pay. All of them. But I need your help. Leah looked up, wiping her eyes. Anything. What do you need? Rod Tracy is the weak link. He's drowning in guilt, drinking himself to death. If we can flip him, get him to testify against his father, the whole empire crumbles. Rod's a coward. He won't do it. Not willingly. But what if he thought he had no choice? What if he thought betraying his father was the only way to save himself? Leah's eyes narrowed. What are you planning? Nathan laid out his strategy. It was risky, maybe illegal, but it would work. It had to. Rod Tracy's apartment was in the expensive part of downtown. Nathan waited in the parking garage until Rod stumbled in around 2 a.m., clearly drunk. Rod Tracy, Nathan called out, stepping from the shadows. Rod spun, nearly falling. Who, Hunter? Nathan Hunter. His eyes widened. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck, I didn't. You didn't what? Didn't know they'd kill him? Didn't mean for your best friend to die. I didn't. I swear, I just told my dad that Mark was asking questions. I didn't know what he'd. Rod's voice broke. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. Nathan advanced, and Rod backed against his car. Sorry doesn't bring him back. I know. I wanted to kill myself every day since. I should have helped him. I should have been brave like Mark. But you weren't. You chose your father over your friend. My father would have killed me too. Rod shouted. You don't know what he's like. What he's capable of. I've seen things. He slid down against the car, sitting on the concrete. I've seen terrible things. Nathan crouched beside him. Then help me stop him. Rod laughed bitterly. You're going to stop Dominic Tracy? He owns half this city. Judges, cops, politicians. Not anymore. I have Powers' confession on tape. I have Mark's evidence. What I need is someone on the inside. Someone who can testify to what Dominic Tracy really is. He'd kill me. He's going to kill you anyway, Nathan said bluntly. You think he doesn't know you're a liability? That you drink too much, talk too much? The moment you become inconvenient, Powers will make you disappear just like the others. Rod's face went ashen. He wouldn't. I'm his son. Annie Valentine had a son. So did Herbert Merritt. Dominic Tracy doesn't care about family. He cares about power and control. You're just another tool to him. Rod was silent for a long moment. Even if I wanted to testify, he'd have me killed before I reached a courtroom. Not if we do this right. I have friends in the FBI who aren't on your father's payroll. We build an ironclad case, get you into protective custody, and bring down the whole organization at once. I don't know. Nathan pulled up a photo on his phone. Mark at graduation, smiling, full of life and hope. My son believed people could be better than their worst moments, that they could choose redemption. He believed that about you, even after you betrayed him. Prove he wasn't wrong. Rod stared at the photo, tears streaming down his face. What do I have to do? Chapter 7. The Trap Springs. Nathan spent the next week orchestrating what he privately called Operation Reckoning. Every piece had to fall into place perfectly. Austin Fields worked his contacts in the FBI, finding Agent Calvin Chambers, a straight arrow who'd been trying to build a case against Tracy for years but lacked evidence. When Austin showed him what Nathan had, Chambers nearly wept with joy. This is a RICO case prosecutor's wet dream, Chambers said, spreading out Mark's evidence across his conference table. Racketeering, murder, corruption, money laundering. We can seize every asset, flip every co-conspirator. How long until you can move? Nathan asked. Give me 2 weeks to build the paperwork. We'll need warrants for everything. Homes, offices, bank accounts. We do this by the book so it sticks. We might not have 2 weeks. Tracy's getting nervous. Chambers considered this. Then we accelerate. 1 week. But I need Rod Tracy's testimony locked down. Rod had been meeting with federal prosecutors every day, spilling everything he knew. His testimony was devastating. Murders ordered casually over dinner, bribes paid in cash, Witnesses intimidated or eliminated. He named names, provided dates, drew organizational charts. My father kept records, Rod told them. He's paranoid about being betrayed, so he documented everything. Insurance, he called it. The files are in a safe in his home office. Can you access them? Chambers asked. Maybe, if I can get him out of the house. Nathan had a plan for that too. Lloyd Powers called Nathan on Thursday. I'm in. What changed your mind? Nathan asked. I'm not going to prison for that bastard. You were right. I've been skimming, planning my exit. But if Tracy goes down, he'll take me with him out of spite. So yeah, I'll testify. I'll give you everything. But I want immunity and witness protection. Agent Chambers is willing to deal. One condition. I get to watch Tracy's face when he realizes I turned on him. Nathan smiled coldly. I think that could be arranged. The trap was set. Friday night. Nathan called Dominic Tracy from a burner phone. This is getting tedious, Mr. Hunter, Tracy said. I told you, I have Powers' confession. I have your son's testimony. I have bank records, communications, everything. It's over, Tracy. A pause. Then laughter. You're bluffing. Lloyd would never betray me, and Rod is too weak to testify. Check your office safe. The one where you keep your insurance files. You'll find it empty. Rod's been very helpful. Nathan heard something crash in the background. You son of a bitch. I'll kill you. I'll kill everyone you've ever loved. No, you won't. Because in about 30 seconds, FBI agents are going to arrest you for murder, racketeering, and about 15 other felonies. I just wanted you to know, my son was smarter than you, braver than you, and even dead, he beat you. Nathan hung up. Through binoculars, he watched from across the street as FBI vehicles swarmed Tracy's mansion. Agents in tactical gear breached the doors. Inside, Tracy was dragged out in handcuffs, screaming about lawyers and rights. Rod stood with Agent Chambers, watching his father taken down. The young man's face showed relief and grief in equal measure. Lloyd Powers was arrested at his apartment minutes later. He went quietly, knowing cooperation was his only play. Over the next 48 hours, the operation expanded. Warrants were executed across the city. Bank accounts frozen. Associates arrested. Tracy's entire empire dismantled in a coordinated strike that had the precision of a military operation. Because it was. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Nathan attended every day, sitting in the front row where Dominic Tracy could see him. Every time their eyes met, Nathan saw the same thing, impotent rage. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. They had everything. Powers' testimony about murders committed on Tracy's orders. Rod's inside knowledge of the organization's structure. Mark's meticulously documented evidence. Financial records showing money laundering. Recorded conversations proving conspiracy. Tracy's lawyers tried everything. They attacked witnesses' credibility, claimed evidence was illegally obtained, argued entrapment. Nothing worked. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge, an elderly woman named Carolyn Maxwell, who'd watched her city corrupted for years, showed no mercy during sentencing. Mr. Tracy, she said, looking over her glasses at the man who'd once seemed untouchable, you used wealth and influence to corrupt the institutions meant to protect people. You ordered murders as casually as ordering lunch. You destroyed families, ruined lives, and believed yourself above the law. She sentenced him to 6 consecutive life terms without possibility of parole. Lloyd Powers, who'd cooperated fully, received 20 years with a possibility of parole after 12. He'd live, but as a broken man. Rod Tracy was granted immunity in exchange for his testimony. He left the city the day after the trial ended, telling Nathan he was moving somewhere small to start over. I can't bring Mark back, Rod said, his eyes red from crying. But I'm going to try to be the man he thought I could be. Nathan shook his hand. That's all anyone can do. The media coverage was intense. Mark's story became national news. The young journalist who'd sacrificed everything to expose corruption, whose father had finished the fight. Arthur Spencer, Mark's professor, published Mark's final article in the university's journalism review. It was brilliant, comprehensive, and heartbreaking. Leah Boyer gave interviews, speaking about Mark's dedication and courage. She established a scholarship in his name for investigative journalism students. Nathan returned home to find Rebecca waiting for him. She'd flown back from Cleveland for the verdict. "It's over," he said. She pulled him into her arms, and for the first time since Mark's death, Nathan wept. Great, racking sobs that shook his whole body. Rebecca held him through it all, her own tears soaking his shoulder. "He'd be proud of you," she whispered. "I just wish he was here." "Me too. God, me too." Chapter 9. The Legacy. 6 months later, Nathan stood in the warehouse district, in the room where Mark had compiled his investigation. The university had taken over the space, transforming it into the Mark Hunter Center for Investigative Journalism. The court boards remained exactly as they'd been, preserved behind glass as a testament to one young man's courage. Students toured the space regularly, inspired by Mark's dedication. Arthur Spencer gave lectures here, teaching the next generation how to speak truth to power. Nathan came here sometimes, when the grief felt too heavy. Surrounded by his son's work, he felt close to him. "Mr. Hunter?" He turned to find a young woman, maybe 19, with determined eyes. "I'm here for the scholarship interview. Professor Spencer said I should introduce myself to you." "What's your name?" "Kristen Gibbs. I want to be an investigative journalist." "Like Mark." Nathan smiled. "What story do you want to tell?" "There's a chemical company dumping waste in poor neighborhoods. Nobody's covering it because they advertise in all the local papers. I want to expose them." She reminded Nathan of Mark. That fire, that certainty that the truth mattered. "Mark would tell you it's dangerous work," Nathan said. "That powerful people fight back, that you might lose everything." "I know, but some things are worth fighting for, right?" Nathan's throat tightened. "Yes, they are." After Kristen left, Nathan stood alone in the center one last time. Then he walked outside, where Rebecca waited in the car. "How are you?" she asked. "Better. I think Mark will be happy, knowing his work continues." Rebecca took his hand. "I've been thinking. We can't change what happened, but we can honor him by living the way he did, believing the world can be better." Nathan looked at his wife, this woman who'd endured so much loss yet remained kind, remained hopeful. "I love you. I love you too." As they drove home through the city Mark had fought to protect, Nathan felt something shift inside him. The rage that had driven him for months had burned out, leaving something else. Purpose. He wouldn't bring Mark back, couldn't undo the grief, but he could make sure his son's sacrifice meant something. That night, Nathan opened his laptop and started typing. He was writing down everything: the investigation, the trial, the truth. He'd publish it, make sure the story was told completely, because that's what Mark would have wanted. Justice, truth, legacy. In the end, that's all any of us leave behind. Epilogue. 3 years later, Nathan Hunter published The Shadow Key, a father's fight for justice. It became a bestseller, inspiring criminal justice reforms across the country. Leah Boyer graduated with honors and became an award-winning investigative journalist, carrying on Mark's work. Rod Tracy ran a nonprofit in Montana, helping at-risk youth escape cycles of violence. Dominic Tracy died in prison of a heart attack, unmourned and forgotten. Lloyd Powers was denied parole and would die